Arc 6, Chapter 31. An encouragement of cooperation in the tower. In the end, the conclusion of the second-floor Electra capture meeting was put on hold. Although they had failed to come up with an idea that would allow everyone to break through their current situation, the biggest factor in their decision to postpone everything was but one: Subaru's stomach had begun growling. Subaru, looking back, I was unconscious for 2 entire days before I got up, and immediately got to tackling the tower's trials. No wonder my stomach was almost touching my back. It was only when the conversation died down that Subaru's stomach roared, and for the first time did he realize exactly how famished he was. To be unable to fight on an empty stomach was not actually true, but what was true was that it affected one's ability to think properly. As a result, once Subaru's stomach started growling to make its dissatisfaction known, everyone took it as a chance to sum up their discussions for the time being. Subaru, honestly, some part of me feels rescued because my stomach made a noise. Leaving aside the breakthrough plan for the second floor, there was a certain pattern observed in the questions proposed by the trials of the watchtower. Alongside the realization of the pettiness of the trial taker, the exact nature of the danger Shala posed also came to light. Subaru was supposed to be wary of her because of her fighting prowess to begin with, but because of her airheadedness and her massive clinginess towards him, had made him put his guard down. Shala, it's fine to just stay here and have fun with me. No matter how many days, years, or even hundreds of years. Indeed, Shala's audacious declaration had reminded everyone of exactly what danger she posed, as it likely should be. Subaru, it's not like I'm planning on it or anything, but if we make a break for it in the middle of our tower conquest, it seems like there's a rule that'll make her definitely become our enemy, right? Sifting through his mind, he recalled one of the many rules Shala had spoken of. Dropping out in the middle of the trial, violating any of the trial's rules, disrespecting the library, and destroying the tower. If any of these were to be broken, then Shala would once more become the enemy she had been when preventing them from entering the watchtower. He wished to avoid that, be it in terms of ability to fulfill their goal or simply on an emotional level. Subaru, but just sticking around here for years on end like how Shala put it doesn't seem really realistic, so I'd really like a pass on that, but regarding the topic of the tower conquest soberly, many different kinds of anxieties would naturally rear their ugly heads. Subaru and the gang had already spent over a month on their path to get to Pleiades' watchtower. Even if they cleared the trials one after another without a hitch and conquered the tower, and then took that same amount of time to get back to Pristella, their journey would have lasted around 3 months. Of course, withdrawing halfway was, because it would make Shala an enemy, an undesirable decision to come to. But the royal selection deadline needed to be kept in consideration, as Emilia and Anastasia were participants. 3 years in total, a bit over 1 year had already passed, leaving only less than 2 years at hand. Of course, the time that could be accumulated and the time that could be spent were in fact both impossibly limited. Beatrice, but if you keep worrying about tomorrow's tomorrow, you won't get anywhere, in fact. For now, the tomorrow that is based on today is important, I suppose. For that, Subaru, I gotta eat till I'm full now. Right, Beatrice. That is so, in fact. Beatrice pointed her finger at Subaru as he spoke those words. As the discussions were halted in lieu of preparing their meals, Subaru took this chance to go and stroll through the various parts of the tower, spending his free time wandering through the 4th floor, the area everyone designated as their residential quarters. And accompanying him, holding his hand as tightly as she could, was Beatrice. The reason they held hands every now and then was because Subaru's gait was busted, and as his contracted spirit, Beatrice collected his pent-up mana. But even putting that reason aside, Subaru wanted to hold Beatrice's hand, and Beatrice herself never refused. Subaru, besides, you were really worried about me when I was out cold for 2 whole days, right? So just relax for today and let me spoil you. Beatrice, stop it with your stupid comments, I suppose. I'm only collecting the mana I didn't bother collecting when Subaru was sleeping. In fact, Betty wants to always be at her best, especially in this tower, I suppose. I want to avoid a lack of preparation, in fact. Subaru, you say that, but in the end, Weren't you the one who held my hand while I was sleeping, even though you didn't collect my mana? Beatrice. That was indeed unrelated to mana, but an act for the purpose of recharging Betty's heart, so it doesn't matter, I suppose. Subaru smiled as Beatrice puffed her chest as she proudly stated her mana-unrelated intentions and decided not to point out how it was a much more embarrassing thing. In any case, Subaru raised his hand in agreement with Beatrice. They had to keep the second floor trial in consideration. By no means did he want to think that the first floor's trial also required heavy combat power, but he could not exclude the possibility. Moreover, the Subaru and Beatrice duo had functionality even outside of battle, and for that, he needed Beatrice to be at peak condition at all times. Subaru, all right, Biko, I'm good now so you don't have to mind me. Just keep on sucking out my mana till you're round and plump. Beatrice, Betty's not going to puff up like a ball even if a lot of mana is collected, in fact. Moreover, are you aware of how much mana you have even if you are feeling good, I suppose? Can't have you collapsing again because I took what little mana you already have, I suppose. Subaru, oi oi if that's the case, what do you suggest doing? Beatrice, therefore, at the very least you need to eat your fill, rest up, recover your strength and mana, and also work hard and keep Betty company, I suppose. That is your mission, in fact. Subaru, I'm pretty sure I'm all good now, and I'm also pretty sure your true feelings about feeling lonely when left alone were mixed in there. Ah. Subaru deftly bore a complicated mix of chagrin and charm on his face. Upon hearing the footsteps of someone coming from further back in the passage, he stopped walking. That noise was produced by none other than Emilia, on the other end. Noticing Subaru and Beatrice there, she approached, surprised. In her hands, she held a metal container painted silver, a bucket. Subaru, a bucket, huh? Even at times like this, Emilia Tan's giving her best, gonna practice singing. Emilia, Fufu, what are you saying, Subaru? I sure do get a lot of help from Bucket Sensei when I'm practicing singing. Now's not really the time for it, you know one. Subaru, right, so what's with the bucket again? Emilia, well, I'm getting Bucket Sensei to do his usual job, of course. Smiling at Subaru's question, Emilia thrust the bucket to him. And it was full of water, so indeed, Bucket Sensei was doing its original job well. However, even if the bucket had fulfilled its purpose, there rose a question in that itself. Subaru, but where's the water from? The tower is surrounded by a sand sea, right? Emilia, oh no, that's where you're wrong, Subaru. If you go past the tower really far, the great waterfall's supposed to be there. And there really is a lot of water there, so... Subaru, you went all the way, just for a bucket of water. All for me. Emilia, if it's for you, Subaru, I wouldn't mind doing that at all, but that's not it. To tell you the truth, the spirit in the green room can give us fresh and clean water. She wore pride on her face as she spoke for some reason, but Subaru felt giddy for that little bit she had stated before giving him the truth of the situation. That if it were for Subaru, she would go fetch water from even the great waterfall. It made him incredibly happy. Subaru, while we're at it, happy and all, you know, the spirit of that room is really something. Going all the way, even outside of healing injuries and all, isn't it? Emilia, if it's just making water, Beatrice and I can do it too with magic, but... Beatrice, the miasma is too thick around the sand dunes and the tower, I suppose. It would be much wiser to avoid drinking the water created from mana affected by it, in fact. Emilia, that's how it is. Subaru, I see. Beatrice weighed on Emilia's reluctance, and Subaru recognized the problem. The problem of securing a source of drinking water for the journey up to that point, which should be regarded as important in a normal journey, had been more or less cleared by relying on magic. As long as one had mana, there was no need to carry a large amount of drinking water as it could be produced as much as needed. Only the containers were necessary. Magic made things extremely convenient in this case. Subaru, it's not air pollution, but more like mana pollution, huh? So it's like bad for you? Drinking that water. Beatrice, I don't know if any immediate changes will be seen in the body, I suppose. But the more you drink, the more miasma enters you, in fact. If that happens, at the very worst, developing a physical condition like Subaru and earning special attention from witch beasts may be possible, I suppose. I'm getting shivers just thinking about it, in fact. Subaru. It's weird coming from me, but it really is kinda hard, living with it and all. He often made use of this specific property of his at various times, but it was more of a last resort and not something that could be used often. Even beyond that, if he went hiking in the mountains for whatever reason, there would be a risk of accidentally getting surrounded by witch beasts. If given a choice, not having such a physical condition would be much better than having it. Emilia, and so we're using the green room spirit's purified spring water as much as possible. We did the same thing when Subaru was sleeping for 2 days straight. Subaru, so that's how it was. He felt impressed by the explanation of the unknown living conditions of Pleiades' watchtower. And as he mulled over the talk of spring water, a natural question hit Subaru. It even had to do with the caution he felt towards Shala from just before. Subaru, putting aside the water stuff, how are we doing with the food? We did fill up on supplies at that city beyond the sand sea, but we did have a hard time with it. Emilia, you can relax. Even with all that turmoil, the food didn't just fly off somewhere. All of it is still in the dragon carriage. But Subaru, no matter how you distribute it, it's not gonna last maybe even a month, is it? Even if drinking water had been put aside, there was a weight limit on what could be carried on the dragon carriage. Moreover, food needs were not limited to Subaru and the gang. Their partner dragons, Patrash and Giant, needed food as well. Keeping that fact in mind, they had stocked up on a month's worth of food. Barely escaping the tower with their lives was not the only topic on hand. They had merely a month's time to conquer Pleiades' watchtower proper and head off to the nearest town safely. Subaru and the others' deadline to capture Pleiades' watchtower was just that 1 month. Emilia, Subaru, that said, I really don't plan on being here for the whole month. Emilia, Subaru, noticing a hint of worry in her eyes, Subaru smiled. They had a deadline, and their challenges were many, but they could start shying away from them. Subaru, anyhow, in just 1 day, I got us off to a late start, so to be fair, it's the 3rd day since we got to the tower, but we've already cleared the first trial, and Emilia Tan easily nabbed her victory in the second. Emilia, it really wasn't easily nabbed, though, Subaru. You're supposed to season this part with a good bluff, so it's completely fine. He pointed his finger at a serious Emilia, arrogance at full throttle, then pulled Beatrice closer to him and placed his chin on top of her head. That way, both Subaru and Beatrice were looking up at Emilia. Subaru, doesn't matter if the opponent's the strongest former sword saint or whatever. Biko and I are gonna lambast that one-eyed sexual harassing chopstick bastard's face in with our brilliant strategies. Beatrice, that is so, I suppose. Lambast his face in fact. Emilia, lambast. Subaru, who even says lambast these days? Emilia, no count? That's so unfair. Subaru and Beatrice kept saying it so. Having fallen into Subaru and Beatrice's collaborative trap, Emilia puffed up her red-dyed cheeks in anger. As they added in a new pattern to their usual back and forth, Emilia sighed as if it could not helped, her worry fading a bit more. Emilia, fine, I get it just fine. Hearing it from Subaru makes it feel like it was really easy, but that makes you sound just as reliable. Subaru, yeah, just have faith, keep on hoping and keep on loving me. That's why I'm your knight after all. Emilia, that's right, isn't it? I'll be in your care then, my dearest knight. Subaru, just now you didn't deny the love part, so I'm kinda shaken. Emilia. The whisper of love he had mixed into their usual banter seemed to have been brushed aside smoothly, so he felt slightly disappointed. Well, even if he had been properly answered, his feeling of being flustered would not have gone away, so it was actually better this way. In any case, Subaru, I know it's a bit late to ask, but isn't it kinda weird that Emilia Tan was the one who was told to fetch water? This is the kind of work that's supposed to be, not really done by your knight, but isn't it supposed to be the kind of work that underlings do? Emilia, it's really fine. Subaru might be my knight, but I don't want our relationship to be that of a master and servants. I just want Subaru to stay next to me. That's all that's needed to protect you. You're recovering right now, so be obedient and be spoiled. Subaru, what's up with that, Emilia Tan? If you're gonna pamper me so much, I'm gonna die from happiness. Emilia, Besides that, I'm in charge of today's dinner. I want to do everything by myself. Beatrice, it seems like she is serious about both statements. That's what makes her so hard to read, I suppose. Beatrice let out a short sigh at Emilia's statement. And then, as Subaru kept his chin on her head, she waved to Emilia. Beatrice. Look, Emilia. Subaru isn't going to relax as long as you're here, in fact. You're delaying preparations for our meal as well, so hurry and be off, I suppose. Emilia. Really? Okay. I'll see you later then. Look forward to it, okay? Beatrice. We'll be waiting with glee. Beatrice sent Emilia off in spineless Subaru's place. Her response to Emilia's words reflected a subtle difference in their perceptions. Emilia, I'll call you when it's done, so don't go off too far, okay? Beatrice will be going to the 4th floor, I suppose. As for if we can hear your calls or not, Emilia, gotcha. I'll use a louder voice. Beatrice, okay, in fact. After exchanging smiles, Emilia went off on her way, bucket in hand, waving her hand as she disappeared around the corner. Seeing that, Beatrice looked up to Subaru, still resting his chin on her head. Beatrice, now then, I hope you have calmed down, I suppose. Subaru, yeah, I'm good now. I don't really get it, but I suddenly thought Emiliatan was really cute, you know. Like everything else, but Emiliatan doesn't have color anymore, so I feel all better now that I got to see her really smile. Beatrice, I don't understand a word of what you're saying. It's worse than usual, in fact. And besides that, Subaru, besides that, he had spoken of his true feelings for Emilia in poem format with a straight face. So Beatrice pressed her back against Subaru's chest, and Beatrice, it's unfair you're so full of Emilia, I suppose. Betty is Subaru's partner, in fact. Please act with awareness of this fact, I suppose. Subaru, you're really a cute little thing, aren't you? Beatrice, Jaya, in fact. As she seemed too sweet all of a sudden, Subaru picked her up and spun round and round in the hallway as he rubbed his cheeks against hers. Subaru, it's fine, relax, I love you too. How do I put it? Right now, everything around me looks so beautiful, but you're looking particularly spectacular. I love you, Biko. Beatrice, wait, I get it, all right, so let me go. Let me down already, I suppose. I got it already, so let me down, in fact. But even as Beatrice shouted, her face betrayed, Subaru would not let her down. And so, he wandered around the halls of the 4th floor, spinning through each space available, Beatrice still in his arms, with glee. The voices of the two would continue painting the halls with cries of joy for some time more, until Emilia's shout of the food's ready was heard. Now then, the total time before their meal was not literally spent spinning. Beatrice presented him with a very thorough walking tour of the 4th floor, being his senior here, as she had spent 2 more days than him actively living in the tower. Though as it may be, in the first place, this place was called a watchtower. However, there was no need to be concerned about its habitability, and in fact, nothing extra needed to be done to improve the comfort of living, even in the designated residential area, the 4th floor. The only special rooms were the green room, which had become their treatment facility, and the large room which housed the stairs leading to the 3rd and 2nd floors. Apart from the large stairs leading to the floor below, there were only many smaller rooms scattered here and there, with no visible pattern to them. Subaru, it feels weird to not have a map, but I'm sure I'd feel even weirder if we had one. This tower definitely has a creepy design, I'm absolutely sure of it. Really not a fan of these kinds of rattled arrangements of buildings. Beatrice, what you are even talking about, seeing how distasteful the contents of the trials are, it's no use complaining about the wicked personality of their creator, I suppose. Too late for that now, in fact. Shala, that right there, that's talking bad about my master. You ankle-biter, you're bad-mouthing my master. He's the one who built this tower, you know. Are you okay with this, master? If you're spoiling her just because she's little, she'll grow up all rotten, you know. You should scold them silly like they're adults. And then, you can spoil me as much as you want after. Come on over here, Subaru. Just shut it already. Running her mouth as if she'd slain an ogre too, Shala tried finding fault in Beatrice. But in fact, Beatrice had said nothing particularly bad, but he felt it was a pain to explain. There was no point in trying to differentiate between Subaru, her master, and the sage each and every time. even more since they were using that misunderstanding to their benefit. Emilia, stop fooling around all the time. Shala too, please be quiet. Shala, I can't take this. This is discrimination. Discrimination between ankle biters. Emilia, if she really does something bad, Subaru will properly scold her and not just spoil her. And since he's not, it means Beatrice did nothing to get scolded. And besides, it's only natural that the younger ones are treasured more. We have to be patient, Shala. Beatrice, even though Betty's older than everyone else, it doesn't sit well with me that I'm always treated as a child, I suppose. Subaru, yeah, just show off how old you are. He smiled as he petted Beatrice's head to calm her down. In response to Emilia's call for their meal, all parties concerned gathered in the large room on the 4th floor, the place where the dragon carriages and their cargo were being kept. Everyone but Rem and Anastasia, due to both being unconscious, were present inside the dining room. All sat facing each other. Everyone except those two, which meant stranger. Before we begin, would it be permissible for me to speak for a bit, Emilia-sama? Having been the last one to arrive at the room, Julius spoke. While Julius had been practically thrown into the green room to recover from his injuries, his reason for appearing was definitely not limited to partaking in the meal. He had refused the proposal of having his food being carried to the green room. And to answer his question, Emilia, who was managing the place, nodded. Emilia, of course, by all means. But you don't really need to ask for my permission, you know. Julius, as Anastasia-sama is currently absent, the one who ought to be respected the most is Emilia-sama. Moreover, my selfish attitude has already inconvenienced you. That it is only limited to this occasion is something I cannot certainly say. The response of Julius, as he shook his head, had everything articulated elegantly. His humble mannerisms and his honest disposition were at last as was part of his usual nature. However, individuals who would not take his speech in a favorable manner were present as well. Stranger, how admirable, if you only acted as such beforehand. Subaru, Ram, we have enough recklessness and stubbornness with Barusu over there. In fact, it is far more natural to be disappointed in a person who seemed sane. I hope you will take care not to repeat this in the future. Ram sharply evaluated Julius's arbitrary actions. A chill in her voice and eyes were her usual features, but this particular time, Subaru felt her expression was much sterner. Even if she was harsh as usual, there was a certain hint of concern mixed into her words. Emilia, Ram, you went a bit too far this time. Ram, please accept my sincere apologies, Emilia-sama. From hereafter, I will take more care. She immediately apologized for her bitterness, then gave a fleeting nod to Julius. As such, there was no point in further pulling this topic around. Besides, it would not be right to blame Ram for not being as level-headed. She held no grudge, nor felt any hate for Julius. She simply wished to save Rem, and was doing everything in her power to do so. Julius, my sincerest apologies to both Miss Ram and everyone else. I have caused everyone much worry. Understanding fully well that Ram's words were only him reaping what he sowed, Julius bowed his head and dropped the matter from his side as well. This was what Julius had wanted to do before starting their meal. Subaru did have an inkling of an understanding for Julius's prior behavior. So he had already forgiven him, but whether Julius had forgiven himself was an entirely different matter. This was the first step he took in order to start the ritual to absolve himself. Emilia, okay, Julius apologized. I accept that apology. With that, I'm all done with this matter. Clapping her hands together, Emilia summed up her feelings on the matter of Julius's apology. Subaru, followed by Beatrice, nodded. Subaru, well, I've already let him have it from my part, so I won't be saying anything beyond that out of Samurai's compassion. Beatrice, Betty also has Samurai's compassion 3, in fact. It's fine if you simply regain face with future actions, I suppose. Julius, my thanks. Ruminating on those two's words, Julius whispered under his breath. Following from Subaru and Beatrice, Maylie suddenly responded to Julius's whisper of gratitude. While sitting on the floor with her legs stretched out, she fiddled with her braid as she spoke. Maylie, isn't it funny? He didn't die after all, and I'm not particularly concerned about Nai Tony-san either way. Shala. Master's saying no prob, so no prob from me as well. No pass. Subaru. Yeah, no pass is something entirely different. Maylee's thoughts were likely exactly as she put them, indifference rather than consideration for Julius. Shala, who agreed, probably was in the same boat. Much like Shala, who was affiliated with the tower and had not shown any signs of opening up to anyone other than Maylee and Subaru, Maylee's position in all of this was vague as well. And so, Ram. Only Ram did not respond directly to Julius's apology, not saying a word about whether she forgave him or not. She simply put her white robe over her head and stared down at her meal. Julius wordlessly accepted that. Everyone apart from Julius did the same. This alone was a personal matter. Everyone felt it would be best for them not to stick their noses. Emilia. Well then, let's dig in. Ram and I were cooks for today. Ram. We could not use fire, so we put a bit of our manliness into it. Otherwise, it should be decent. Emilia. That's right. It's really decent. Doesn't decent sound a bit weird? Her voice reminded everyone of their current state. Even though Emilia tilted her head to pose the question, neither Ram nor anyone else followed up on it. Anyhow, following this exchange, everyone sat to have their precious meal. Most of the food being carried in the dragon carriage were either smoked or dried rations. So naturally, the food would be coarse and tough, however. Magic proved to be of great use here as well. Through the use of Emilia's specialty of ice magic, it was possible to create a pocket refrigerator in the dragon carriage, allowing fresh ingredients to be stored for long periods of time. Because of this, the party was able to have plenty of fresh fruits and other foodstuffs, being able to maintain a fairly balanced diet. Emilia, we still have to first use the ingredients that spoil pretty fast. Subaru, we're really lucky to even be able to worry about that, you know. Really, you're M's for. With this journey and all, I'm sure your cooking's gotten even better, so maybe make miso soup every morning for the rest of my life. Emilia, sorry, I've got no idea what you're talking about. It was true, however, that Emilia's cooking skills had improved. At the request of Emilia herself, cooking on this journey was being done in rotations. Of course, it was a given that Emilia never cooked by herself, instead learning by following another cook's footsteps. Thanks to that, there was no one who kept burning their daisukiyaki platter pitch black, because she was put in charge of the part of cooking that did not involve the use of fire. Incidentally, among the members partaking in this journey, the only people who could actually cook were Subaru, who had picked up this skill over his year of being a servant at the mansion, Julius, who apparently was capable of whatever he set his mind to, and finally Ram, whose cooking was surprisingly decent. Even on their way to Prestella, the only people who would put themselves on cooking duty were the male trio of Subaru, Otto, and Garfield, who then decided their order through rock, paper, scissors. Leaving that aside, Ram. Staring at me like that, do you have anything to say? Subaru, I know it's been over a month now since we've started this journey and all, but I still can't really believe it. That Ram can cook. Ram, I was wondering what you were going to say, but this is just... Using his meaningful stare as an excuse, Ram sighed, unwilling to hide any of her distaste for him. Ram, the only reason Ram does not go near the kitchen is not because Ram cannot cook, but because she does not want to. I'm not going to use my skills for any kind of cooking that does not involve steamed sweet potatoes. That task can be handed out to Frederica and Petra. Subaru, so that's why, well, that's that then. Ram, that's that. I wonder why I make an exception just for steamed sweet potatoes, though. Ram's visage crumbled into a complex expression as she questioned her own preferences herself. As Subaru gazed at her profile, he let out his own faint sigh. No matter what household chore it was, Ram always lagged behind Rem. Now, as all traces of Rem had been erased from the world, Subaru observed that their sisterly bond might have not been the same as their face value. In truth, Ram was supposed to be able to perform any kind of task assigned to her, regardless of whether it was present in her list of duties as a maid. Thus, it may be that, in the first place, she would not lose to Rem in terms of ability. In other words, if Ram thought about doing it, she could do whatever she wanted when Rem was still in good health. The reason she did not was most likely related to her laziness, or not. Subaru. Subaru felt like he should not dig up those particular things. The present Ram certainly knew nothing of that. And if Rem returned, he felt it would be unnecessary to bring up. When she returned, rather. Subaru. I kinda guess that's how it's gonna be, but you really have no table manners, do you? Shala. Munch, munch, huh? Master, did you just say something? She blinked a few times at Subaru, who looked at her with a scowl. The number of top-class beauties who completely wasted their good looks in this world was not low, and Shala had to be the top class of that top class. To the point that she was on par with Liliana. As she brought food to her mouth with her hand, Subaru scratched his head. Subaru, oi, don't talk with food in your mouth. Eat or talk, do one. Shala, Akae, then I'll talk with Master. I can talk to my master for all eternity. Subaru, who'd want to get into a chat with you like this? Just be quiet and eat. Shala, Akae. While he had to feel a bit of respect for her level of loyalty, wanting to prioritize talking to Subaru above eating and such, he felt that, precisely because she was so ready to obey, Shala's risk level was actually low. Indeed, her nature as a person, her ability in every other respect, and the level of danger she posed to everyone were all in utter imbalance. Meili, say, naked one san. You really have a, voracious way of eating. Were you really that hungry? Shala. Nah, it's just that this food's super tasty. I didn't really think eating's that big of a deal, but if it's really this tasty, I wouldn't mind becoming that half-devil's disciple. Emilia. My disciple. As in cooking. Instead of stopping at Meili's point, she went beyond the topic and snapped her finger to Emilia as she swallowed down whatever she was munching on. Emilia jumped, startled, while Shala continued to shake her head up and down. Shala, this cooking's pretty good. You can't fool my eyes. I'm gonna take up cooking too, get good at it right away and make my way into Master's heart through his stomach, and not let him get any sleep tonight. Meili. Your real intentions are leaking theer. Emilia. Shala, I understand your feelings, but you know the way of the cook is a hard-trodden path. If you're really ready, I'll put some serious thought into taking you in as my disciple. Subaru. Emilia Tan, you're really cheeky about the weirdest things, you know. Besides, 70% of today's cooking was likely the result of Ram's work. So it was hilarious to watch Emilia act like she had figured out everything there was to cooking, and Shala, who was a bit too taken in by amateur-level cooking. Subaru, I feel like I gotta get this out here, but there's a lot of tasty stuff out there. Emilia Tan's cooking is, well, it gets full marks just because she did it, but putting that aside, it's pretty average. What are you usually eating anyway? Shala, thank you for asking me, Master. My eating habits aren't really anything special. I'm usually filling myself by roasting whatever beasts I take down. Subaru, whatever beasts you take down. Wait, do you mean those witch beasts from outside? Shala listened to Subaru's question, then folded her arms under her voluptuous mounds and nodded repeatedly. To have a steady diet of witch beasts was too weird to be a normal thing. So to take the advice of a specialist, Subaru turned to Beatrice and posed the natural question with his look. Subaru, I know we just talked about not drinking water that's mixed with the miasma a while ago, but... Beatrice, I don't even want to think if witch beast meat is good for the body or not, in fact. It's only that it's not something that's so dangerous that it'll have an immediate bad effect, I suppose. Julius, according to certain records, there were a few researchers who had set out to eat witch beast meat in the past. As Subaru undid the wrinkles between Beatrice's brows with his fingers, Julius brought up an interesting piece of information. As everyone's expressions urged him to continue after he stopped, Julius closed one eye and began anew. Julius. As you are already aware, witch beasts have a habit of attacking people. Be it in the middle of their march or during a long journey, if one were hard-pressed enough for food, they could find witch beasts aplenty, wandering within dangerous territories. After all, they never think of hiding. Witch beasts will always come to attack. If one defeats them, then it was obvious that a good source of food would be obtained. There should be no doubt that there were individuals who truly thought this. Subaru. Well, did that end well for them? Julius. To improve their situation for nourishment, they apparently faced many twists and turns, went through much trial and error. However, no such improvement was found. Of course, those who ate it found it to not be poisonous, but Subaru, but, Julius, it seems there was a problem with the taste. Subaru looked amazed that it turned out to be a problem of taste. If it tasted bad, then it was fine to cover it up with various spices or other condiments. It was true that the meat of wild beasts had this raw and earthy taste, but if it wasn't poisonous, then they ought to have at least tried a bit harder. Julius, that was as far as it was recorded in literature. Miss Shala, what is your personal experience with it? Shala, it tastes like sand that's been rinsed in sewage water. Totally. Subaru, it's the kind where spices won't help. Shala, if Master wants to try some, I'll whole roast a hungry horse king. It's so fucking bad, you get super addicted. I'm lying. After finding out what unimaginable thing her 400-year diet was, everyone unanimously decided to no longer blame her poor table manners. He politely declined the whole roasted hungry horse king offer. In the first place, that particularly disturbing witch beast was already on fire. Subaru, I thought having to worry about food was an actual problem, but he popped himself down and covered his face. At the end of his vision, there was Shala, her entire face lit with a smile so bright, it could bring tears to others as she stuffed a variety of food into her mouth. And Emilia, who looked on as Shala ate, her feelings of motherhood being further stimulated, which could potentially lead her to further improve her cooking. 1 month, that was the amount of time left to them, which accounted for all their food, including their excess. And if Shala kept up the pace at which she ate, their time limit might just decrease even further, Subaru thought. Once their meal was over and they had their baths in the spring water, consisting of mainly wiping their bodies, the day was dubbed as over, and it was time to go to bed. In light of their present situation, it could be said that the Tower Conquest squad ought to spend the night trying to come up with a plan to break through their current stalemate. But at present, everyone felt that it would not work like that. To expect tomorrow's matters to be solved by their tomorrow's selves might have been more appropriate than given credit for. Subaru, not like we're just gonna get smacked in the face with it. Let's take a bit more time. Given what the contents of the second floor's trial were, worst-case scenario, they might have to go in again the next day without a plan at all. Instead of thinking up a workaround, they would go at it with all they had, though in truth, they all wanted to avoid being torn limb from limb. At the very least, their trial taker, the first-generation sword saint, had no intention of killing them. Or maybe they could even find a way to overcome this particular obstacle simply from conversing with him. Just like how Emilia had pried out her winning conditions from him simply by talking. Subaru, well, gotta do what I gotta do to keep my head straight. So I have to eat well, rest well, and always be at peak performance. He thought as he pinched both his cheeks, then put all his worries away for the day. For the most part, Emilia and the others agreed with Subaru's point. Or rather, they were so demotivated, they had no choice but to. And with that, the night's meeting was over. Each left for the dragon carriage, which they were using as a makeshift bedroom, to rest and prepare for the next day. At least, that was supposed to be the case. Beatrice. Subaru, Betty will be with Emilia and the others, in fact. Subaru, oh, gotcha. Sorry for making you worry, Biko. Don't stay up too late. You'll stop growing and get stuck in your small size. Wait, that's pretty cute. All right, Biko, remember to stay up late. Beatrice. You don't have to worry, Betty won't grow any taller than this, I suppose. I'll be cute forever, in fact. So I'll be like this even if I sleep early, I suppose. After yawning, Subaru waved to Beatrice as she parted. As she left Subaru to say good night, Beatrice was holding hands with Emilia. Subaru, Emilia Tan, take care of Biko. See you tomorrow. Emilia, MHM, see you tomorrow. Subaru, don't stay up too late either, okay? Instead of directly telling him not to, Emilia said her piece and headed down the great stairway to the lower floor. Once she was out of sight, Subaru stretched a few times, then walked down the 4th floor's passage. His destination was obvious. A door that was covered in ivy, the entrance to the green room. And there's Stranger. Is that you, Subaru? Subaru. Ah, it's you. In front of the room, Subaru ran into Julius, who gazed at him with eyes wide. Just when he was about to enter the green room, Subaru had arrived, so he squinted at him for a good moment, then immediately pulled back his chin knowingly. Julius, I understand. It seems we share the same reason for entering this room. Subaru, I'm pretty sure we have different people in mind, so should I give it up to you tonight? Julius, no need. Shaking his head at Subaru's proposal, Julius looked to the closed door. A moment of silence followed, then the pair of yellow eyes were once again pointed at Subaru. And then Julius took a step back from the door, as if giving it up. Julius, this time it is I who ought to give it up for you. Thinking back, you were unconscious for 2 entire days until this morning. I did inform her of your well-being afterwards, but I am sure she yearned for your presence at night nevertheless. Subaru, yeah, well, if you are giving it up for me, I shall just gladly take you up on your offer. Imitating his elegant style, Subaru scratched his head while stealing quick glances at Julius. He found no signs of displeasure in Julius' expression, but Subaru was bad at trying to snoop into someone else's feelings in the first place. That went double for anyone who hid their true feelings. It was practically impossible for him at that point. Subaru, you okay with that? I'm pretty sure you want to tag along. So Subaru sighed and spoke what was on his mind in a straightforward fashion. Julius gave a thin smile in response, with a most definitely. Julius, it is true that I would prefer being at Anastasia-sama's side, once she wakes up if possible. It is only that I feel I will be unable to find the words to speak to her when she does. It is true that I am feeling lost about this aspect. It is most deplorable. Subaru, it's fine if you open with, I was very worried, so I'm glad you've awakened. The problem is with what comes next. That, well, I'll leave that to you. Julius, PFFD. Subaru, oi, why'd you laugh? I'm being pretty serious, you know. Even if he was being serious, it seemed that Julius had not taken it too fondly. He then gyrated on his heels, turning his back to Subaru, who wore a surprised expression at that strange reaction. Julius, you are able to freely say what you want. I envy that. Subaru, kinda feels more like you're calling me an idiot. Oi, where are you going? Julius, I am relinquishing this place to you. I shall return to the dragon carriage and take rest. I feel slightly worn out from today's activities. Raising his hand while keeping Subaru at his back, Julius told him before leaving. Whether he felt well enough to joke about the trial tiring him only slightly, or whether he was simply putting up a front, was something Subaru could not tell. He could not tell, but Subaru. Julius, it's better if you're there when Anastasia wakes up after all. When I'm done with my stuff, I'll head over to get you, so you better do just that. Julius. Subaru, I'll let you know beforehand, but I'm pretty sure I've got a lot more regrets on my back than you. So this is my advice. Just take it. He shouted at the back that disappeared into the hallway. Whether Julius heard or not, he was unsure as there was no reply. However, Julius would definitely not take it the wrong way. At least, Subaru believed that. Subaru. Sorry for disturbing. With a shake of his head, Subaru threw away all considerations he had for Julius, and he pushed the door open, taking a step into the green room. The room, illuminated by a dim and faint glow, still remained dominated by greenery, with 2 girls who lay asleep on a bed of ivy. Anastasia on the bed near the entrance, and Rem on the bed further back. Subaru. And you're at the back too, huh? Stranger. Regarding Subaru, who had come to visit her, Patrash let out a low growl, as if the jet-black dragon knew he would come. Tactful as she was, perhaps Patrash did indeed know that Subaru would come. Spontaneously, she moved away to make space for Subaru to sit on her bed of ivy. Subaru, really, you're one hell of a girl. Those wounds are healing up nicely too, eh? With a bitter smile, Subaru traced her black scales with his hands. The wounds she had received at the time of the underground fight against the Hungry Horse King had healed nicely over the past 3 days. Normally, she would not let Subaru know the true extent of her injuries. Now, however, she was genuinely focused on recovering instead of putting up a strong front. Subaru, really, can't thank this spirit enough. If it weren't for this room, who knows how hard this whole thing would have turned out to be. Subaru would never voice that it was good Patrash had gotten off with shallow wounds, but it was true that the damage they had sustained in their journey through the Agria sand dunes had been minimal. The only ones that had been injured were only Subaru and Patrash. That they were able to come back up to above functioning standard was all thanks to this green room. including the duo of Julius and Anastasia that had been wounded during the second floor's trial as well. The existence of the green room was indeed miraculous, as if someone had known this might happen and left it prepared beforehand. Subaru, well then. Once he was done affirming his love for Patrash, Subaru took a deep breath before heading towards the bed further inside the room towards Rem. When there, the ivy shifted like flowing silk, gathering into a spot to make a sort of chair for the standing Subaru to sit on. Subaru, really, man, there should be a limit to how nice you can be. Even though he had just expressed his everlasting gratitude for the green room's spirit, he felt like it was taken as flattery for even better treatment. That was far from his intention, but he took the offer anyway, and so Subaru sat down. Subaru, Julius did mention Rem's been missing me at night. That was a mistake. That was not the case at all. Because the one who was waiting to speak late at night, when no one would bother them, was not Rem, but surely Subaru. Subaru noticed something was off when he felt his shoulders being lightly shaken. Subaru, raising his face from the bed, he blinked several times. Contrary to physical reactions, the mind was usually much slower to react, and slowly his consciousness returned to him. Returning to reality, he noticed. Subaru, did I fall asleep? Hand on his chin, Subaru pondered the surprising fact that he had actually fallen asleep. It seemed that he was still in the green room, still sitting on that chair right beside Rem's bed, and it appeared he had dozed off in that very position. However, he felt that the shape of his chair was somehow different from what he remembered. The chair in his memories had no backside. But now, the chair had a large backside to support him in his sleep, and it had taken an almost egg-like shape to conform to his whole body as much as possible. The hospitality of the spirit was just too damn strong. It was so comfortable that it had turned yawns into actual sleep inadvertently. Subaru, means I was pretty tired too, Patrash. Muttering about the feeling of fatigue he was unaware of, Subaru turned to the cause of his awakening, Patrash, who had nudged his shoulder with her long tail to wake him. Curled up over the ivy bed, his beloved dragon had likely roused him to alert him to something. Subaru squinted at where she was staring and, Subaru, no way. Following Patrash's line of sight, Subaru jumped off his chair and rushed over to the bed that was by the green room's entrance door, the one Anastasia was supposed to be occupying. It's supposed to be because she was not there to be found. And once it hit Subaru, his face lost color. Subaru, even though I gave Julius an earful about this. Only because he had dozed off, Julius could not greet Anastasia when she woke up. He could not even face him if he wanted to with this. Unfortunately, that was not the only problem. Subaru, she got up and then. Where'd she go? The toilet. Without waking me. It was not really a matter of whether she had actually gone to the toilet. It was that Anastasia, no, more like Echidna, had woken up and snuck out of the green room, alone, without so much as a word of notice to Subaru, who was sleeping right there. To think she had disappeared right after the trial of the second floor. Did she go to challenge Reed again, just like Julius? He did not even want to picture that. Subaru, the bed's still warm, gotta go look for her. Anastasia's bed was still slightly warm. There was the fact that Patrash had woken him up as well. Meant not a whole lot of time had passed since Anastasia's departure, most likely. Subaru, Patrash, I'm leaving Rem to you. And right, thanks for waking me. Patrash. Shortening his reply as much as he could, Subaru waved to Patrash before heading out. Unable to figure out where exactly she could even go, his heart throbbed faster. If it were Subaru in her place, he would first want to make sure Amelia and Beatrice were okay. If so, then naturally, she would be heading towards where Julius was. Subaru. No, wait, it's Eridna who's inside her right now. No way it's gonna be anything simple. But then, he did not have enough manpower to tackle this problem. Even if it meant exposing his embarrassment of dozing off to others. For now, he needed to reach out to the others and get their help in finding Anastasia Subaru. And on his way down the stairs to call the others, he stopped. He was dumbfounded and stunned, a dumb exhale leaking due to his reaction. It was the dumb voice that would exit one's lips when finding something incredibly abnormal, something that definitely could not be. Subaru, that something swiftly crossed an astonished Subaru's field of vision. With white wings spread wide in the narrow hallway, a bird gloriously flew. Subaru, why's there a bird inside the tower? The words rolled out of his mouth at the sight of a bird, an existence that should not be present there. Pleiades Watchtower's walls had no windows connecting to the outside. The tower was a building that was completely closed off from the outside world, with the only connection being the giant door on the 5th floor. At the very least, that was what Subaru believed, and his guide for the 4th floor, Beatrice herself, had said the presence of a window that could lead outside was something she did not have an inkling of. Subaru, wait up. Feeling something was very off, Subaru hurriedly began his pursuit of the bird as it flew away. For a moment, he hesitated. Should he follow after the bird, or should he call someone because of Anastasia's absence first, then discuss the bird issue? Subaru chose to follow the bird, however. To lose sight of that bird here, he felt, might lead to an even greater danger down the road. Simply put, it was a gut feeling. Subaru. Of course, birds were not such gentle creatures, to listen to Subaru and stop flying simply because he called after them. Gently it flew away from Subaru, further and further, deeper into the hallway. He chased and chased and chased, and before long Subaru. It disappeared. What the hell? He shouted upon reaching the end of the hallway. The hallway of the 4th floor itself was circular, taking after the shape of the watchtower. However, it was not connected like that, because at a round half-circle, a wall stopped further progression. It was like a clock. If one started at 12 o'clock, they could go till 6 o'clock both clockwise and counterclockwise, but no more than that either way. Subaru knew that, and as long as none of the doors to the rooms were opened, he was certain he could catch the bird, but Subaru. Doesn't look like it slammed into the wall and fell. What the hell's going on here? Confused as to where that pair of wings had disappeared, he surveyed his surroundings over and over. Unfortunately, there were no open rooms the bird could enter. It had appeared suddenly and disappeared just as suddenly. He felt like he was wrapped around the smoky veil of a dream, but he soon confirmed he was not dreaming. Subaru. These are feathers, right? On his way back out of the hallway, Subaru found white feathers fallen on the ground. While he still held his doubts, looking at it from a situational perspective, these white feathers definitely belonged to that bird he had been chasing. They were proof the bird definitely existed. He could very well take them to Amelia and the others and say, there was a bird inside of the tower, but it would ultimately lead to nothing. Most of all, it would not lead to where Anastasia disappeared off to. Subaru, wait. If there's feathers lying around here, then there should be something here. Subaru searched the wall and floor around the place where the feathers had fallen while thinking that. He examined the stone floor and ceiling, checked the nearby rooms, and even pressed the stone bricks of the walls. However, there was nothing akin to a trick to be found, and he only felt his pulse quicken with each passing moment. Really need help, and it was precisely at that moment. Subaru, it was when he was moving his palm over the place the feathers had fallen. His fingers had brushed against the wall right beside there, or so he had thought. In reality, he realized his fingers had slipped through the wall, as if it were an illusion. Even when he carefully tried to press his fingers against it, they went through, so it was no optical delusion. Subaru, but I'm pretty sure I've checked the walls around here pretty well. That was not to say he had failed in searching properly, but only that the wall above his waist was solid, and an illusion had been set lower than that. An illusionary wall that covered up the entrance. The last time he had seen something like this was back when Beetlejuice and the witch cult were hiding in that Cavern 5. Subaru. Risk it all to win it all, huh? If one went into a crawl, they could pass through the illusionary wall. After a good moment of hesitation, he decided to crawl through and get to the other side. The bird had gotten in through this way, most likely. If this led to the outside of the tower, or maybe to another part of the tower, then Subaru. Pua! The darkness beyond the wall did not last as long as he expected. Subaru dove out of the illusionary wall and took a deep breath, like someone coming back up from a dive underwater. He was holding his breath while inside that darkness for no apparent reason. He quickly noticed the outside air that flew across his face, a cool breeze. Subaru. Whoa! He opened his eyes, slowly adjusting them to the darkness of the outside world. Spreading out in all directions over the vast horizon and under the night were the sand dunes, seen from a height unfathomable. And watching over this spectacle was the dark sky, spotted with countless twinkling stars. And there's Stranger, waiting in the place that was supposedly the watchtower's balcony. Her purple hair fluttering in the breeze, surrounded by flocks of birds, was Anastasia.